for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, folks, we hear a lot of things happening in the greater Hazleton area. We got redevelopment happening in the downtown city. And, I often say as Hazleton, the city of Hazleton goes, a lot of surrounding areas go. So I know we have a great viewership in the Schuylkill County, Monterey City, Frackville, Tamaqua, Hometown, Delano, all these towns that are coming on board and your very strong viewership. I think, folks, when you listen to today's show, you'll see a pattern that's happening in a city that's evolving. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of things happening. Crime is always an issue. It's a serious issue. And we have a person now in Hazleton, our police chief, Frank DeAndrea, who has, when he started in March 2012, had some objectives. And we see how things are evolving. And today he's my guest. He comes on the show regularly to give us an update. Frank, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know you're busy, and I appreciate you taking the time out today because I know you have a zillion things going. A little bit about, we talk about crime, and that's what, people are always concerned about.
Right.
The thing is that when we look at Hazleton, and we compare Hazleton, and correct me if I'm wrong, the latest statistics I saw in the state of Pennsylvania, when you have the city of Hazleton and you compare it with other cities of our sort of size, our sort of demographics, right, we are really lower in crime, okay, than right, those other cities. Now, crime is crime, and it's bad. But however, it's not as bad as we have in Reading, comparable cities. With that being said, because there's a couple issues I want to talk about what you did when you came on as police chief. And once again, kudos to your police department. I can't tell you how much we appreciate what they're doing in the city.
Thank you.
With that being said, what were the very key thing that you focused on was what, Frank?
The little things. My objective when I became chief was to try and restructure the department and anything that the department could have to assist us to go after all of the little things. Because when I look at the town, having spent my entire life here, the changes were gradual. The changes weren't overnight, they were gradual, and it started little by little. The only way for the police department to fix these problems is to start chipping away at them. And the way to develop a large-scale investigation is one piece at a time, which is so critical with all of the little things we're going after, the nuisance violations, the noise violations, the parking violations, getting to be in charge of code to allow us to address the quality of life issues. Those are the issues that get us in the door of places we never may be able to expose ourselves to otherwise. And then when we're in there, we could piece things together and say, while I was in doing an interview because I had to talk to this person about a noise violation, this is what I saw. You're not going to believe who was sitting at the dining room table when I visited these people, following up on a complaint. Those are what leads us to the larger investigations, and that's what's going to help the police department clean up this town.
So, Frank, what happens is, all the communities who watch the show, they say, well, we're not really concerned about Hazleton. What you're saying is probably a formula that a lot of police departments are using, okay?
It's a copy of the playbook from New York City. And New York City went from the highest crime rate city in the nation to the lowest crime rate.
Yeah.
It's impossible to believe, and they did that by the game plan of the little things. I'm just taking a page out of their playbook.
So, Frank, when we're looking at that, and when we hire someone in any business, they give us their resume, and then they have their job opportunities available to them. Then we monitor them, and we have to support them, okay? When you're in a city such as Hazleton, or any city, we're seeing it in Gilberton with different things are happening. When you're in any city, it requires check and balance, of course. We want to see what our police department is. Sure. But we also requires that when I see gradual things that are developing, then I think I should be supportive of what your police chief is. Now, I'm going to say, fortunately or unfortunately, we always have people in office who have personal agendas. And that's why the general public is so disgusted with politicians, because they don't care what happens as long as their own little cliques are taken care of, and we have my own agenda, and I want power, and I want this, and wherever the car. I'm just saying in general.
Right.
So what happens then is you're developing, and I've been watching you, okay, as well as a lot of people are watching you, and we see progress. We're beginning to see progress. Little things like you said, we're seeing how things are evolving. Yes, it's not a perfect world, but getting back to what we hear is you want to get involved with everything. You want to get involved with code. You want to get with ordinances. You know, you're doing this, you're doing that. You know, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Why don't you just pay attention to the city crime that we have?
Right, and it's a great question. And there's a very simple answer. I mean, I am the outsider from the inside. I came to this department from another organization, the state police. So I wasn't born and raised in the ranks of HPD. But I'm still an insider because I'm from Hazleton and I know law enforcement. And when I assess the police department, I recognize firsthand that the city is financially strapped. But I need to still figure out a way to either increase the abilities and increase the support. Until the day that I have 60 police officers, I need to find help from other ways of doing things. You need to have a zero tolerance, which is why we go through the town and we write all kind of parking violations. And people say, I've been parking here for 30 years illegally and nobody ever did anything about it. The key word there is illegally. You've been doing something wrong for 30 years. Don't be upset that now you're being told you can't do that anymore, because it was always against the law. Right now, I have a portion of the community that is up in arms because we have a zero tolerance for noise violations. The problem is the good law-abiding citizens of the community are affected and offended by blaring music, loud parties at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, yet alone if you work a shift, and you might work the midnight shift, and you're trying to sleep at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and your neighbor decides that they want you to enjoy their music while they're out washing the car. Those are the type of things that the police department needs to be involved in. When I look at some of the ordinances, I recognize firsthand that the only reason why those ordinances are in existence is because it's the way that the city always did business. When they were written, they worked. All I need to do is take you for a walk around the city to see at the time I became chief, there were a lot of things that were not working. I forgive anybody I apologize to anybody who I upset because I want to rewrite ordinances or write new ordinances. But the issues are there. What we were doing is not working. I'm simply trying to get out of the box, get out of the way we used to do stuff, and figure out a way to better this community. A lot of that comes with a new ordinance, or changing the way we did something within an ordinance. You know, right now, if you walk through the city, blight is one of the worst problems that we have, because it's a beautiful city that is made to look ugly in places because of some of the structures that have been abandoned. The law written right now forces communities like Hazleton to go into a land bank where we're supposed to seize the property from somebody and then we can fix it up and sell it. The property has no value, and the city can't afford to fix it up to sell it. So that's out. The only other option we have is to place a lien on the property. Oh, we'll show you when you go to sell it, you'll owe us money. Anybody who knows anything realizes you abandoned that property. You have no desire to sell it. So we're never going to collect our money because we have to wait till you sell it. What we're doing right now is we're placing judgments against that owner for the properties that they own in another state. It's like a sheriff's sale. Now we're going to knock on your door, and you're not going to laugh at us saying, I'm in New Jersey, you can't touch me. We're going to say, we're selling the house you live in New Jersey unless you pay the city what you owe us. Only 1 or 2 times we're going to have to do that. And that is going to wake you up and everybody else to say, boy, we better take care of that property we abandoned in Hazleton. They're going to sell our house in Ohio. That's the difference. We wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't rewrite that ordinance. We wouldn't be able to do that if the police department wasn't, in fact, in charge of code. That's why I'm looking at these things. I need out-of-the-box ways to come up with new ideas to fix an old problem.
And you know, Frank, this is the thing that, you know, first of all, I applaud you for that, all right? I really applaud you for that. And it's, once again, I guess you'll never eliminate the old-time politicians,
No, you
okay? You're not going to eliminate that. The sad part about this whole thing is that we're living with all this kind of nonsense in our cities, in our state, in our government, where people are just, they want to know why all these things are bad, but we know we have solutions to fix them. Now, you just explained, I can understand why you have to rewrite that ordinance,
right.
Okay? So for me to say to you, well, why are you involved with ordinances? Now I understand that. And that's what I'm hoping that these shows are able to do, okay? I feel that people should be informed with facts.
Right.
You know, and sometimes it's a little hurting, because when you have a person who's in a family or you're a friend and they're affected by it, well then you're no good, okay? And I don't think that's fair in some areas. Yeah. Folks, I'm talking to our police chief at Hazleton, Frank DeAndrea. As you can see, a lot of things are happening now. The branding of the police department now, HPD, a lot of new vehicles, right? And then now recently get involved with the Crime Watch and getting everyone together and getting the community together. We're seeing improvements. But you know what, folks? Let me tell you, I've made a major investment in Hazleton. I've been born and raised in this area, and we have great people here. And it's unfortunately we have some politicians who have their personal agendas, and they put that ahead of the good of the community. And folks, hopefully you'll begin to realize that, you know, either through elections or either through local support. I know when I see Frank outside or whenever I see Frank, I was at one place and Frank was across the street, and I think this happens a lot where people will just roll down the window and say, "Hey, Chief, keep up the good work. Like what you're doing," you know, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's encouraging to you. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest, Chief of the HPD, Frank DeAndrea. Before we go to Frank, remember, folks, the official water of Samson Productions and SSP TV is Great Spring Water. Now, go to their website, greyspringwater.com, and you'll find out they have a wide variety of bottles, you know, the 5-gallon, 4-gallon, whatever you want. They have them, and they deliver. And our website, folks, ssptv.com, 24/7. Thank you so much. We're up to 2 million hits, and we appreciate that very much. Welcome again to the show. We're talking to our chief. And folks, for those people in Tamaqua, hometown, Monterey City, important information. Frank, the complaint is this. You know, you only have a 17% approval, you know, with crime.
Right.
So, so the question would be, as soon as I hear that, as a citizen out there saying, you know, what the hell is he doing? Sure. He's only solving 7, and he's involved in all these other things. Come on, Chief, pay attention to crime.
Right, and the 17% solvability factor, that means that we solve 17% of crimes. That was the standard long before I was chief. However, that says one thing. The police department does not have enough cops. The only way to solve crime is to have police officers that can go out and investigate the crime. I am not a criminal investigator. I do not handle incidents. I'm an administrator. Yes, I have arrest capabilities, and if I see you breaking the law, I can arrest you. But my job as the top cop in the city is to administrate and write ordinances and policies and make sure that things are done, inspections, inventories, that type of stuff. If you want to solve more crime in the city, plain and simple, you need more cops to investigate it. Right now, the police department is so busy going from call to call to call that they do the report when you say that something was stolen from your house, and they file the report, and you get to turn it into your insurance company, but we don't have enough officers to even do a follow-up, to spend the hours that it takes to do all of those interviews. Sometimes we're fortunate to get right on it and get around it. The 17% solvability factor we have are all of our violent crimes, our serious crimes. We have a homicide, we spend on an average $20,000 in overtime, again, because I don't have this cast of thousands of police officers to throw at it. The Attorney General's office, the District Attorney's office, they throw as much support staff as they can, the county detectives, we go hot and heavy for 3 or 4 days, and we solve those crimes. But it's all of the quality of life crimes, the burglaries, the car break-ins that go unsolved. And they're the ones that affect the community. So the solvability comes right down to the city is suffering not enough police officers to be out there on the floor, on the, boots on the ground, doing that job.
Okay, so we have a city, first of all, that requires 60 cops. We have 37 cops. So that's just so you understand that. But let's get back to, you mentioned about dog fighting,
right.
Okay? And of course, you want to extend the crime watch, etc. Now, why are you getting involved in, we're going to get the traffic patterns in Hazleton in a second, but why is it that you're involved now with dog fighting? What's this all about?
That's a great idea. It's a great question. The fact of the matter is that this entire Hazleton area, and probably a 4 or 5 county radius, has such a high volume of dog fighting, dog incidents, dog bites, dog attacks, and that's all changed over the last couple of years. And the dog fighting is done by a very violent facet of our community. They're violent criminals. And the same people that are involved in fighting these dogs are involved in guns, weapons violation, drugs, homicides, violent crimes. Al Capone was arrested for tax evasion. He was one of the most notorious mobsters of the 30s and 40s. He's arrested for income tax evasion. If I could teach law enforcement in this community about dog fighting, which is going on by these violent criminals, and I could put you away for a felony offense for your inhumane treatment of animals, I still win because I got you, the drug dealer, the violent criminal, off the street. I'll arrest you for anything I can. Dogfighting is crippling our society because it's so violent. And a lot of times children are exposed to this. Dogfights sometimes last up to 4 hours. And could you imagine 4 hours of 2 dogs with 2 handlers in a 10-by-10 pit going at each other, and the only time you stop the fight is perhaps to defang the dog because its jowl got stuck on its incisor and you have to pull it off its tooth. And the only time that fight stops is when one dog can't scratch, it can't toe the line, hence the saying, all the fight is out of the dog. And what does the owner of that dog do? He does the only honorable thing. He tells the other owner, let your dog cull that. Let your dog kill that other dog. I have no use for that dog. It's a very violent entity of our society, and if I could rid us of dog fighting, I could rid us of a very violent community that's into all of these violent crimes, because what happens is they roll that violence from the dog fight into everyday society, and as we expose kids to this, they begin to think that it's okay, and then we become violent against each other.
As you speak, I'm upset, okay, because when I think of anybody in their right mind who would do something like this, it's beyond my imaginations. I'm sure people listening to you right now are just saying, oh my God, this is terrible. So now you get that person and you arrest him and you now go to the courts. The courts have to decide. There's legislation that says if you do this, you get so many this. Right. The police can only do that. Then and I know I'm being political, but I want people to understand the transition here. The policemen, state policemen, any cop out there, they do their job. Now they have to respond to what the courts have to say.
Right.
And the courts have regulations. They say for this crime, you could only do this, okay? Right. And so therefore, the reason for that is that we may have liberal legislators who feel we don't want to punish these people, the bleeding hearts. Right. So then they say, well, why are they back on the streets again? Going back to when you're voting for people, understand where they stand. Yeah. See, Frank, it's a domino effect, and it's so difficult for people to understand that.
I have to add one thing, though, because we are very fortunate. Both Representative Toohill and Senator Udicek stand very strong in support of this new legislation for dogfighting, and they are truly advocates for ridding our communities of that.
And that's what I'm alluding to. The
You're
fact is that they were on my show. So when you're looking at people who, in all areas, not just for that, but the punishment, when you do something wrong and you're doing something to society, give those cops a break. They worked hard for it. Frank, traffic patterns, Hazleton, for the high school, what's happening up there?
That is a very unique situation. pending City Council's formal approval, hopefully at this meeting coming up, beginning of September, we're going to change the traffic patterns permanently on Manhattan Court. 7:30 to 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, there will be no traffic allowed to travel west on 9th Street from Carson Street to Manhattan Court, which is the alley closest to Laurel Street. That will allow for all of the students that used to go in Manhattan Court and Garibaldi Court, they all now have to go in the front doors to pass through the metal detectors. There's going to be a huge queue, a huge influx of students, 1,000 students standing in line waiting to get through. I need to make a little bit more of a safety buffer by giving them one lane of the street so that if somebody gets pushed off of a sidewalk, they're not getting hit by a car coming down. To do that, we will allow Manhattan Court to again become two ways. It was permanently changed by City Council by ordinance in 2006. I'll be going back in front of City Council for their formal approval of allowing it to go back to two ways. What that does is it allows you to now make an easy circle around the castle without having to go all the way out to Church Street, up to 8th Street, back to Laurel Street, up to 9th Street, back around. You're going to be able to go Carson Street, 11th Street, Manhattan Court, 9th Street.
Frank, it's just so my director, Andy Fisher, doesn't crack up in there. Andy, I'm going to waive this break, okay? So just give me a wrap-up when we're getting close, all right? I don't want my Andy going, he's jumping up and down
Sure.
in the control room. Okay, now let's talk about this crime watch meeting you had the other day.
Great.
What happened there?
Well, the crime watches, since I've become chief, I constantly go to the public. You know, I feel like the recruitment poster in the 40s where we need you. And that's the truth. I mean, we're not going to succeed unless this entire community gets past being fed up and now realizes, hey, there is something we can do to help because I need your support. What I'm doing with these crime watches now is I'm taking each neighborhood watch, the ones that were always active, the ones that were sort of petering out, starting up new ones. You'll always maintain your own individuality like every state in the nation is still a state. But then we've got to bring them together to what I call, so we take the neighborhood crime watches, and I want a neighborhood crime watch in every neighborhood. Because who better than you to know when your neighbor's lights shouldn't be on, when the garage door shouldn't be up, you know, why is the dog barking? You call 911 and report it. But collectively, criminals do not know boundaries. They don't stop at Boundary Street, they don't stop at 17th Street, they don't stop at Hayes Street, they don't stop at Thompson Street. They certainly don't stop when they hit the Arthur Gardner Beltway. They don't stop when they come from Luzerne County into Carbon County or Columbia County or Schuylkill County, just like your viewers, and you're right. It's not only Hazleton, it affects us all. So what I'm doing is I've partnered with all of our neighborhood crime watches to include Northgate and Hazel Township, Birch Knoll, West Hazleton, phenomenal crime watches, and I said, let's start a Hazleton area crime watch. That's the crime watch, not the neighborhood watch, the crime watch. We all sit in one room. We get very good speakers. The police department will talk. We bring in senators. We bring in representatives. We bring in district attorneys. One meeting instead of now what I was doing, going to 7 meetings a month. And we discuss common issues. Because if your car on Arthur Street was broken into last night, I guarantee you that Alter Street should be aware of it because those criminals are going to be in the next neighborhood 2 nights from now, and then they're going to be in Northgate, and then they'll be up at Birch Knoll, and then they'll be down at 19th Street. And the way to attack the crime problem is for us to become educated.
And I like that idea because I saw when you were at the meeting, I was there at the HIP building yesterday, you're getting more and more people involved, and when they start seeing more and more people, it becomes contagious and saying, well, now I could do that because I think it's a great thing.
Get hip. HIP, exactly. Hazleton Integration Project. And the reason why I chose that is because I'm the first person to recognize we have barriers in this community that need to be broken down. Because once I can bring all of the good together, we'll police out the bad without a problem.
And just so you know, I'm going to have the president and Curry come on again. We had them HIP.
Right.
Everyone thought it was just a Hispanic thing.
No,
only the
not.
Hispanics, only
It
the
is
Hispanics.
a community
right.
center.
700 kids signed up, over 700 kids signed up. all Caucasians,
Right.
Hispanic, everyone. And I was there yesterday,
Yeah.
and I saw them. Bob was doing some soccer coaching, and I saw the diversity, and I saw kids coming in, Caucasian kids coming in with their basketballs and wanted to be involved. And I think it's a great opportunity. I know. When we see the crime and who's committing these crimes, we begin to, like the old Italians had the mafia. If you were Italian, you were a mafia member. Well, that's not the case, okay? I think you sense that, don't you, Frank?
Absolutely. It is not the case. And the beautiful part about this community center is it's not just kids. There's adult learning classes there. It's a place to go get involved. But the reason why I'm bringing these neighborhood watches to a crime watch is because part of what I need to succeed in doing is getting you to reacquaint yourself with who might be your new neighbor. And the only way to do that is to put everybody in one room. Oh, I didn't know that's where you do. Oh, that's where you live? Oh, hi, nice to meet you. We got to come together. I need you to get involved. And together, we can make this a better community. There is no doubt in my mind, I'm not just saying that. We have turned a corner, and we are well down the path to success. We just need to come together.
Frank, and what you need support. And yes, if I was a councilman, I would question you just so I could get information. But it's how far you go beyond that questioning as to just because I don't like Joe Umunzi and he appointed DeAndrea, I'm going to get him, okay? This is the kind of sick politicians that we have in the country, and it has to stop. It really has to stop, folks. And Chief's Corner, I think you could address some of those things, Frank.
Sure,
okay,
absolutely.
folks. If you have any questions, and I'm talking about anyone, I'm playing the show in Pottsville, and folks, for you people in Pottsville, you have a great police department. Your chief and your police people, men and women in Pottsville are doing a fabulous job. So I just want you to know that I know the chief very well, and he really is a great guy. If you have any questions, you can email me at sam@ssptv.com. All I can say, folks, is become informed. Please become informed. We have a major election coming up November. I ask you all, please check the credentials of people you are appointing. I'm going to have our superintendent on the show, and we're going to talk about the school board and why are school board members still playing the games of getting involved with the administration. You know who you are, school board members, and shame on you for what you're doing to the school board. You should not be involved in the daily activities of this school district. We have great administrators doing the job. Do your job as a school board member and make sure that they live the policies. You do not have to go in there and micromanage. We'll see you next time.